Hello and welcome back to Elden Ring and welcome to patch 1.09. Today we have all kinds of patch notes and changes hitting the game and quite a large roster, I believe the biggest roster of PvP specific changes that we've ever seen for the game. Some major changes to reduce the sort of instant burst jib killing that occurs, really big nerfs to things like bleed and jump attack builds, and a wide selection of general changes that are going to change the way the game feels and plays for both sides of the game. The question is, what's the biggest, most important things to look at? We're going to take a look at those, cover what the changes actually do and what this means, and our thoughts on them. So let's get started to begin with the flails. Flails are an interesting one because they've been pretty much the worst weapon type in the game from the start of the game. And we finally saw some relevant changes for them in 1.08, the previous patch, where when you would specifically power stance them, they gave them some recovery time improvements and speed and distance improvements. What this meant is that flails remained just not a good pick, not a good weapon type at all, and still pretty much the worst one in the game. It was really weird that it was specifically only for power stance flails, but ultimately it was a good change. We just needed a bit more. In our current patch of 1.09, we have that now. Their damage is better because the attribute scaling is actually better on this weapon type. Specifically, flails have further increased speed of various attacks, further improved recovery time on those attacks, and if you are using them in two-hand instead of power stance, we have better poise damage on this weapon type as well. Also, they improved the speed of guard counters with flails, but yeah, not that relevant. What this means basically is through the combination of the previous attack distance and speed of attack buffs to power stance flails and the current 1.09 improvements to further speed and further recovery, as well as the attribute scaling improvements improving the damage overall, flails are a lot better than they were. In fact, when you're using them in power stance, it feels particularly good because the range of those attacks actually catches and clips people in an unexpected way. The damage is certainly better, although not amazing, and the standing combo is pretty damn effective. Like, if you have high enough poise in your build and you're able to trade with someone, you can standing combo them from good range at reasonable attack speed as well. I think if we were to actually make a build properly for this, instead of just the build you're seeing here, which is me with some high armor and a couple of standard flails, we could see some real, genuine relevance to flails. In fact, while I've been testing this today, I've seen a bunch of people using them in different ways. So there is hope for this weapon type now with this combination of improvements. However, I do not think it's like broken or meta or crazy. We're going to look a bit further into it, but they're certainly better than what they were, and now they're worth trying. For our second thing though that we want to talk about in this patch, it's got to be Blood Flame Blade, because this is one of the strongest, if not the strongest weapon buffs in the game. We've been talking about this a lot recently in various builds throughout patch 1.08. What this did is actually enhance Ashes of War, so you could get a ranged bleed attack using this weapon buff and then using an Ash of War like a ranged one, and it would augment it to be a ranged bleed attack. Really incredibly powerful, and very subtly it seems that patch 1.09 has finally removed that augmentation. No longer seems to affect your Ashes of War in that way, and you can't make yourself a ranged Ash of War bleed option. This makes sense because it was kind of broken and overpowered. Pretty crazy stuff. It did lead to some fun builds, but yeah, we've been expecting this, so it's finally here. Moving on, we're looking at curved swords, which are actually specifically looking really good now. The moveset overall has felt a lot better, as well as power stance feeling really good too. What they've done is they've increased the speed of the attacks, the range of attacks, and the recovery time, which is always nice. So there are varieties of curved greatswords that are really good. Two particularly good ones then are the Magma Worm Scale Sword, the Bloodhounds one of course, and as we'll specifically talk about after this, Morgotts. Now in this footage, what I'm doing is I'm using the Magma Worm. This is a trade machine, very powerful, great for trading in general. With the improved speed of attack, I'm able to catch people and clip them with this really heavy hitting weapon much quicker. It's shocking. The range improvements mean I'm able to trade more effectively and catch people at phantom range that they're simply not used to, making it a much greater threat. Just the speed and range improvements has made a real impact. The recovery time is nice because you get stuck in your animations less time, you can roll out, move into another combo. It feels good, but the speed of attack and range of attack being improved feels the most impactful, and it feels kind of crazy. It felt really strong to me while I've been dabbling with it, and I think it's made a real impact on the weapon type in the meta. Which brings me to Morgotts. Specifically in this patch, the Ash of War, the Cursed Blood Slash, has been improved. They've increased the projectile generation speed and reduced the recovery time, so you can get out of that longer animation quicker. And it's that kind of slash pop thing, the projectile, that's what it means. That's coming out a lot quicker. I think Morgott's Curved Sword was in a really good place in the previous patch and was a pretty solid arcane meta relevant pick. With the two aspects of like a melee attack and a second pop on the Ash of War, great for trading in PvP and just overall strong in PvE. This has seen a major improvement this patch because as a curved greatsword, it's now got that improved speed, that improved range, that improved recovery time as a base weapon. Now it's really good. Then with the Ash of War being called out in specific to have the projectile part being sped up as well, I think Morgotts could be a really deadly option in 1.09 and beyond. So do not sleep on this weapon. It's really good now. Moving on, we have another weapon to talk about. The Death Ritual Spear is a pretty damn good weapon, good range, reasonable damage, and a really unique and powerful Ash of War called Spear Call Ritual. That was buffed this patch to have increased projectile generation speed. So specifically what this means is those spears that you summon and hit on a target, they come down faster, they spawn in quicker. It used to take 3 seconds after the actual initial cast. Now it takes 2, which is a major speed up for how fast they come out. This is massive for this weapon, for its DPS and output in general when we think PvE, making it a real kind of scary consideration in that aspect. Then in PvP, it means it's actually able to catch people much quicker. Now, it was already kind of a menace in things like free-for-all and team deathmatch, but in duels, now you're going to be able to use this Ash as soon as someone steps back, even close to medium range, and catch them with this, especially if you can put it on yourself. There is real potential to this weapon in its Ash of War with this small but very important change, so another one I think you should definitely try. Moving on, we have the new grab improvements. Inescapable Frenzy and Lifesteal Fist, aka those grab attacks, they've had some serious improvements this patch in the form of power, range, and grab angle increases. Now, power and range is great because it means it's going to deal more damage and it'll reach a bit further. That's great. Now, grab angle, that just means that if you miss by like trying to grab and you move to the right or left of the target, it'll snap on a little bit more accurately, which is nice. But do I think this is meta relevant, something you should start running immediately? No. These grabs only work on certain enemies, like tarnished, basically, NPCs. There's far and few between options where that will actually work in PvE, so it's not really something you should care about or think about for that. Where I've been using it today in PvP, I've been really annoyed using it. I would hit it and land it and see success and see damage, and it just wouldn't do the grab animation. I think the whole point of this was to make it so the grab actually works properly, finally, and I just don't see that that is the case now. It's undeniably better than what it was, but I just don't think it's good enough. So many times I feel like, well, that felt like a grab, that should have landed. It just doesn't. And when I finally did land one, I was like, oh wow, I'm surprised it actually landed here. And to be fair, it did a lot of damage. When it does land, it is very strong, I'll give it that, but it's just so inconsistent and so hard to hit, such pathetic tiny range and so slow, that I just don't see you really landing it unless the opponent makes a major mistake. So, as cool as this improvement is, I'm still not convinced it's enough. Finally, the last change I want to talk about for you to care about is the Starcaller Cry. Radahn's awesome duo weapons, the Starscourge greatswords, their Ash of War, the Starcaller Cry, has you do that raw, pull up people in, and then do the slam down. The problem with this Ash of War, since it's a release, is just how slow that follow-up is. Even in PvE, you would be interrupted while trying to do it, you get your ass knocked down even when you do land it. As cool and powerful as it was, it's just a bit too slow. I found ways to make that work all the same in things like free-for-all, where you can catch people in corners or surprise people with the pull-in sudden slam down. The AoE obviously is reasonable range and does great damage. But in 1.09, they have improved the speed of that follow-up, so you can actually slam down and get that big hit way quicker. That is probably the only real kind of major issue for this weapon and the Ash of War in particular, and they've actually addressed it and sped it up. Now it is feeling much better and will be much more viable and relevant in both sides of the game. It's going to be a bit of a menace still, I think, in free-for-all and things like that, but certainly worth using in duels because you can actually slam down much faster. But there you have it. Those are some of the main kind of most important changes I think I wanted to talk about for this quick video on release day. I hope that was useful and interesting to you and maybe gives you an idea of what to look into and what to try yourself first. If you've been testing things and found other things that are quite interesting and exciting in this patch, let us know in the comments and we'll probably check it out in a video soon. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching and enjoy 1.09.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.